You know that feeling when payday hits and you're like, I'm rich. And then 3 days later, you're eating ramen and wondering where it all went? Yeah, we need to talk. Because there's this stupidly simple budgeting rule that millionaires use, broke college students use, and somehow you've probably never heard of it. It's called the 50-30-20 rule. And honestly, it might be the only money advice you actually need. But here's the thing nobody tells you about this rule. It's not just about splitting up numbers. It's about completely rewiring how you think about every single dollar that touches your bank account. And by the end of this video, you're going to wonder how you ever lived without it.
All right, let's be real for a second. Here's what most people do with money. They just wing it. You get paid, you pay your rent or mortgage because, well, you kind of have to unless you want to live in a cardboard box. You buy groceries, you fill up your gas tank, you grab coffee because it's Monday and Mondays are illegal without caffeine. You see a sale on Amazon, you order takeout because cooking feels like climbing Mount Everest after work. And then you just hope there's enough left over at the end of the month. Spoiler alert, there never is. But here's what's wild. It's not because you're bad with money. It's not because you're irresponsible or lazy or any of that garbage. It's because nobody ever taught you a system. Nobody sat you down and said, hey, here's exactly how to split up your paycheck so you're not stressed out of your mind. Instead, we got told to budget better and save more, which is about as helpful as telling someone to just be happy when they're having a bad day. Like, thanks? Super specific, really actionable. So you end up in this weird cycle where you're constantly feeling guilty about spending money, but you're also not saving anything. And you definitely can't afford that emergency car repair or that random medical bill that shows up out of nowhere. And the worst part? You start thinking that financial freedom is just for other people. People who make more money. People who got a head start. People who have their life together in ways you just don't. But what if I told you that's complete nonsense?
This is where the 50-30-20 rule comes in. And I'm going to break it down so simply that you could literally start using it today. Here's the deal. Every single dollar you make gets split into 3 buckets. That's it. 3 buckets. Not 10, not some complicated spreadsheet with formulas that require a finance degree. 3 buckets. 50% goes to needs, 30% goes to wants, 20% goes to savings and debt. Now, before you click away thinking, oh great, another budgeting method that sounds good but won't work for me, just hang on, because the magic of this rule isn't in the percentages themselves. It's in how it forces you to actually look at your spending and categorize it. See, most people have no idea where their money goes. They just know it's gone. But when you use the 50-30-20 rule, you're essentially giving every dollar a job. You're the boss, and your money is your employee, and you're finally telling it what to do instead of letting it run wild. Let me explain each bucket, and trust me, this is where it gets interesting. But first, let's talk about that 50% for needs, because here's where most people mess up right from the start.
Okay, so 50% of your income goes to needs, but what actually counts as a need? This is where people get it twisted. A need is something you literally cannot function without. We're talking survival mode stuff. If you lost your job tomorrow, these are the things you'd still have to pay, or your life would fall apart. Here's what goes in the needs category. Rent or mortgage. Obviously, you need a roof over your head. Utilities, electricity, water, heat, the stuff that keeps you alive and not freezing in the dark. Groceries. Not takeout, not DoorDash, actual groceries that you cook with. Transportation. Your car payment, gas, insurance, or public transit costs to get to work. Minimum debt payments. Credit cards, student loans, whatever you're legally obligated to pay each month. Basic phone plan, because in 2025, you kind of need a phone to exist in society. Insurance, health insurance, car insurance, the stuff that keeps you from going bankrupt if something bad happens. That's pretty much it. Notice what's not on that list? Netflix, Spotify, your gym membership, that fancy coffee subscription, eating out, new clothes. That's all wants, baby. We'll get to that in a second. Now, here's the reality check. If your needs are eating up more than 50% of your income, you've got a problem. And I'm not saying that to make you feel bad. I'm saying it because it means one of two things is happening. Either your income is too low or your needs are too expensive. If you're spending 70% of your income just on needs, you're living paycheck to paycheck with no breathing room. And that's when life gets scary, because one unexpected expense and you're drowning. So what do? You've got two options: increase your income or decrease your needs. Can you get a roommate to split rent? Can you move somewhere cheaper? Can you refinance that car loan? Can you pick up a side hustle or ask for a raise? I know. Easier said than done. But here's the thing. If you don't get your needs under 50%, the rest of this rule falls apart. You can't save. You can't enjoy life. You're just surviving. And you deserve more than just surviving. But let's say you've got your needs dialed in at 50% or less. Congrats. Now comes the fun part.
All right. This is the bucket that makes life actually worth living. The 30% for wants. And can we just appreciate for a second that this rule actually gives you permission to spend money on fun stuff? Like 30% of your income is designated for wants. That's not irresponsible. That's built into the plan. So, what counts as a want? Eating out, restaurants, takeout, that $8 latte that makes your morning tolerable. Entertainment, Netflix, Spotify, concerts, movies, video games, books. Hobbies, gym membership, art supplies, sports equipment, whatever makes you happy. Shopping, new clothes, shoes, gadgets, home decor. Travel, vacations, weekend trips, that flight home to see family. Upgrades, the nicer phone plan, the premium streaming services, the fancy haircut. Basically, if you wouldn't die without it, it's a want. Now here's where this gets interesting. Most budgeting advice makes you feel guilty about wants. It's all cut out your daily coffee and stop eating avocado toast and cancel all your subscriptions if you ever want to retire. But the 50-30-20 rule says, no, spend 30%, guilt-free. Because here's what I've learned about budgeting. If you make it too restrictive, you'll break. It's like going on a crash diet where you can only eat celery and sadness. You'll last 2 weeks, then you'll binge on pizza and feel terrible about yourself. The 30% wants budget is your release valve. It's what keeps you sane. It's what makes all the responsible stuff worth it. But, and this is a big but, you have to actually stick to the 30%. This is where tracking comes in. You need to know what you're spending in this category. Because it's really easy to blow past 30% without realizing it. That $12 lunch doesn't seem like a big deal. Neither does that $50 impulse buy. But when you add it all up at the end of the month, suddenly you've spent 50% on wants, and you're wondering why you can't save money. So here's my advice. Treat your wants budget like a prepaid debit card. Let's say you make $3,000 a month after taxes. Your wants budget is $900. At the beginning of the month, you know you have $900 to spend on whatever makes you happy. Once it's gone, it's gone. No borrowing from next month, no dipping into your needs or savings. And here's the beautiful thing. When you have a limit, you start making better choices. You ask yourself, do I really want to spend $60 on this random thing, or would I rather save that for the concert next week? You become intentional instead of impulsive. And weirdly, that makes spending money more enjoyable, because you're not spending out of stress or boredom or guilt. You're spending because you decided this thing is worth it. But here's where people mess up with the wants category.
Here it is, the 20% that separates people who stress about money from people who sleep soundly at night. This is your savings and debt repayment bucket, and this is where your future self either thanks you or curses you. Let's break down what goes in here. Emergency fund. This is priority number 1. You need 3 to 6 months of expenses saved up for when life punches you in the face, and it will. Your car will break down. You'll need a root canal. You'll lose your job. It's not if, it's when. Debt repayment beyond minimums. Remember, minimums go in the needs category, but if you want to actually get out of debt instead of paying interest forever, you throw extra money at it here. Retirement savings, 401k, IRA, whatever. Future you needs money, and compound interest is literally free money if you start now.
Big purchase savings, saving for a house down payment, a wedding, a car, that comes from this 20%. Investments, stocks, index funds, real estate, whatever builds wealth over time. Now, 20% might sound like a lot. If you're making $3,000 a month, that's $600 going to savings and debt. And if you're currently saving $0 a month, that feels impossible. But here's the secret. You don't have to start at 20%. Start at 5% or 10% or even 2% if that's all you can swing. The point is to build the habit, because saving money is a muscle, and right now your muscle is weak. But every month, try to increase it by 1%, just 1%. You won't even notice the difference, but over time you'll get to 20%, and it'll feel normal. And here's why this 20% is so powerful. It's the difference between surviving and thriving. When you have an emergency fund, you stop living in fear. Car breaks down? Annoying, but not devastating. You've got it covered. When you're paying down debt, you're buying back your freedom. Every payment is one step closer to not owing anyone anything. When you're saving for retirement, you're giving your 65-year-old self the gift of not having to work until you die. This 20% is literally you being kind to yourself in the future. But I know what you're thinking. This all sounds great, but I barely have enough to cover my needs. How am I supposed to save 20%? And that's a fair question. So let's talk about what to do when the 50-30-20 rule doesn't work for you.
Okay, real talk time. The 50-30-20 rule is a guideline, not a law. And for some people, it just doesn't fit your current reality. If you're making minimum wage in an expensive city, your needs might be eating up 70% or 80% of your income. And that's not your fault. That's systemic. That's a broken system. But here's what you can do. Adjust the percentages to fit your life right now. Maybe it's 70-20-10 for you, or 60-30-10. The point is to have some system instead of no system. And if you can only save 5% right now, that's still $150 a month if you make $3,000. That's $1,800 a year. That's an emergency fund that could save you when your car breaks down. Something is always better than nothing. The other thing people forget? This rule is based on your after-tax income, not your gross salary. So if you make $50,000 a year, but you take home $3,000 a month after taxes and insurance and 401k, you're working with that $3,000, not the $4,166 gross. And here's another hack. If your employer offers 401k matching, that counts as part of your 20% savings. So if they're contributing 5% and you're contributing 5%, you're already at 10% saved without even trying. The point is, be flexible, be honest with yourself, and start where you are, not where you think you should be.
Oh, if you like this video, please hit the subscribe button and click on bell icon.